want to go to scale, you have to understand the nature of codification and its application. But much of pedagogy has to be a set of principles with multiple manifestations.
Right.
That system really works.
Hello and welcome to Up Close and Personal Season 2 here at InvokED Studio, where we dive deep into the heart of leadership, collective action and education equity. I'm your host Aishwarya, and today we have with us a visionary leader who has been at the forefront of education reform in India, Mr. Subir Shukla. With decades of experience in policy design, system transformation, and on-ground innovations, he has played a crucial role in shaping how learning happens in classrooms today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here with us today.
Thank you. Really happy to be here.
Now that we've set the stage, let's begin. Subir, my first question to you is, you have a vast experience in the education domain. What is your idea of leadership?
One of the things I learned early on is that teachers, they are not living to fulfill my dreams. They are actually working to fulfill their own dreams. And I think that leadership is about enabling others to see the best that is possible that they can aspire to and supporting them in actually getting there. So perhaps transformative leadership is what we are talking about. I do not see leader as somebody who's trying to fill in ideas into others, make them do what he or she wants them to do. I think a leader is somebody who has to be available when there's difficulty to help people address issues, but also to get out of the way and let people support people actually achieve what they set out to. And it may not always be the agenda that is in the leader's mind, but I think as long as there is progression, as long as there is movement forward, we are getting ahead. So it's a collective of multiple visions that a leader enables, supports, and helps to bring about so that there is actual transformation which is owned and contextualized and implemented by people on scale over a long time.
Well, building on that thought, are there some specific traits that you would want to see in a leader?
Yeah, I think a leader has to be a good listener, a person who can ask a lot of open-ended questions which get people to think further and also help them see if their answers are okay or not and probe that further, and also share options from his own experience rather than just say this is all that there is. And then once there is commonality between what those before the leader want and what the leader himself is thinking, then to forge that into actual concrete steps. And I think this last part is often ignored. It's the degree of implementability that you bring to the situation that determines whether it can be done or not. So a leader is also somebody who, apart from enabling this vision, actually can make hardcore implementation happen.
That's quite insightful. I'll move on to my next question, which I'm very curious to know. You've been a part of a lot of educational reforms in the country. How do you navigate resistance while doing that?
So it's a multi-layered question. There's resistance at all kinds of levels and for different reasons. So each one requires its own way of addressing. For teachers, it is that they feel that they might have to do things that they don't want to do, or too hard, or too difficult, or inappropriate, or not practical. For others who are in positions of power, it is that they may be losing that. For parents, it might be that they have one notion that education is for, let's say, for getting jobs, but here is somebody who's not talking of that. So each resistance is very different. So again, as I said, it's important to listen. It's not a good idea to believe that you can write roughshod. I found that things work better when you come with questions rather than answers, share options and help the group identify those options. In education, things happen only if there's ownership. That ownership requires a person to make at least some choice, not simply to do as they are ordered. So by simply not telling people, you make a big difference. Yeah, by asking, thinking, it has helped me a lot that I have never occupied a serious position of power where I can penalize anybody. Like if I was an IAS officer or a director, I could hold somebody's salary back or give a report. I don't have that position, so I have to use a different kind of power. That power comes from what I call generative power, which is that people enjoy, they like doing things, they feel they're learning, they're becoming better, growing from inside, and then they want to participate and collaborate. So, so, so to overcome resistance, some of these, another very important thing is that people also resist because they've never experienced anything different. They've never come across a facilitator who has unshakable faith in them that they are going to learn, who doesn't see them as they are, but who sees them as they are going to be, irrespective of whatever resistance they are posing. Change requires a sense of safety. So, for example, if I have to change my view, somewhere I have to acknowledge that I was wrong. How do I do that without losing face? Only when I know that I'm going to be appreciated irrespective of what I. So to establish that kind of connection, safe feeling is a very important way to overcome resistance. And also when it's a common thing, you will see that people can argue against evidence because you can always get evidence for something different. They can argue against logic because you can find some other logic. What they can't argue against is what they are going through themselves. So for example, when I create a workshop where on say the second day, I start a session at 12:30, it is full of exciting activities and it becomes 2:30 before people realize and they've forgotten lunch. And then when this is pointed out, they cannot now say that learning cannot be interesting. So they have experienced it. So that is another way in which to do it. And lastly, I would say that people are resistant because for certain things, they do not have the emotional, mental equipment to make the change required. And I want to give a specific example. I don't like talking in generalities too much. Say, for example, how do attitudes change? Firstly, attitudes change when people experience something different, reflect on it, are able to figure that out and get opportunity to try something out, and then are appreciated for it. So there's a cycle. But in the case of, say, teachers in government schools, the first attitude that changes is they begin to believe that children are capable of doing something. Then they realize that children who are from low income or poor backgrounds can do things. Then they realize that children from religions different from their own can change or do things. Then they realize that those from certain castes are capable, and right in the end, they come to realize that girls are capable of doing a lot. Now, if I straight away start by saying, no, girls can do a lot, and I have not done the previous bit, they do not have that ability, that equipment, they're not at that point where they can make that leap. It's like trying to learn multiplication without learning addition. You don't have the necessary equipment. So just that compassionate look at those who you otherwise feel like hating,
right,
and seeing that you have to equip them with that which is necessary for them to achieve a different level is how you overcome resistance. And the starting point of that is to work on yourself.
Thank you for sharing that. And I can totally relate with what you're sharing because I've had the privilege to be a part of your sessions. And I see how you give ownership to the participants where we can work on our own. And instead of just giving answers, you make sure that as participants, we're involved in the whole process. And like you mentioned, it's very important that teachers experience that themselves and only then they can replicate it in their classrooms. That was quite insightful. Moving on, you've been doing multiple programs in different states. We are looking at scale to make sure that these programs reach national level. How do you look at scale without compromising the quality of a program?
So firstly, I want to say something radical. scale is an unnecessary bugbear. What we think of as scale is not scale. A teacher handles 40 children. A CRC handles 40 teachers. A BRC handles 40 CRCs. And a DO handles 10 BRCs. Everybody handles a limited number.
Right.
Scale becomes a problem only if the implementing agency begins to believe we are the ones who have to do it. No, you're not the ones. What is very important is that you have to get out of there. You have to transfer that role to someone else, and they have to do it. So how do you get there? There are a few important things to keep in mind. Number one, scale, because it must happen on so many different diverse situations, it requires a certain degree of codification. So when you codify, for example, McDonald's are all the same because there is an 1800-page book which says what each McDonald's should be like. So in the same ways, education systems have their own codification. There are many codifications. There's a Shiksha Sanhita, there's a compendium of rules in every state, for example. Then curriculum, textbooks, assessment, these are all. But, and here's the catch, it has to be codified in a contextualizable manner. It cannot be applied in exactly the same way. So to codify it, you codify principles with manifestations. For example, every teacher must bring child's previous knowledge in when teaching something new. That's a principle. Everyone must do it. But somebody can do it through conversation, another can through a picture, another can through a song or whatever. So you can have multiple manifestations of the same principle. The problem arises when we try to say you must do this through a song. And when we make it a procedure, then things don't work. So one thing to understand is, if you want to go to scale, you have to understand the nature of codification and its application. Some things must be like procedure, like assessment must be the same, otherwise you cannot compare. But much of pedagogy has to be a set of principles with multiple manifestations.
Right.
That system really works. That's one. Then you have to generate system readiness. And here you have to understand how do education systems learn, grow. Since this is a short interview, and I'll just mention one or two things. All systems want everything done fast. They want credit.
Right.
And they do try to outsource their work. And here I think any partner who's working with the system must resist that and enable the system itself to follow a sequential path of development so that system experiences success. It's called the theory of small wins. So if every 1 or 2 months people within the system discover something new, some success, they get addicted to that and they want to change that. So there's a whole process of system readiness. And lastly, societal readiness and acceptance. Many of the new things we want to do in pedagogy are not accepted by people. For example, many people even now will say that I was beaten in school and look, I have become better. The answer to that is that you haven't become better. And you still need a lot of work. But so these are the 3 areas I would work on in working on scale. And I would say that it is not a bugbear. And it's important to know that you are not the one who's doing it. It's others who have to do it. How do you get them to do it is the question to work on.
Well, I totally align with your thoughts. And I agree that it's important, the more ownership we give, the more...
No, wait. We do not give. We are no one to give.
Oh,
they
sorry.
have it already.
Yeah, I think that's...
we have to try to remind them of it.
Yes, that you have the ownership. And make sure... I think that's a very important point. And that's how we make them ready to do things that is actually their work.
True.
Right. Moving on to our next segment. We have some jars here. Can you please pick a chit and read out the question for our audience?
Okay, let me try this. Offbeat and curious, it says.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, what fictional world would you like to live in? Nice, nice. So I've often defined heaven as a place where nobody has any stomach.
Okay.
Because you're not hungry, you don't need to eat. Most of your problems are solved. Then you can focus on other things than earning your livelihood, having money, surviving. This is one kind of fictional world. But the other fictional world I would love to live in is, it's a little difficult to uh, uh, we have just you know too much pressure to be productive. I'd like to live in a world where you can just be. You don't have to. As for some part, I did live in such a world. I was in a remote tribal village for 7 years, and very often on way to the school, I would stop in the middle of the forest. It was very thick forest. Sit near a stream and have chana and gur. And the stream was good enough to drink water from, and be surrounded by the trees and simply be. And I think that is the fictional world which is now missing, and we need it.
I would also love to live in a fictional world like that.
Yes.
Well, my last question to you is, what is your one hope for the future of children?
Yeah, I did give a lot of thought to this in the last few years, and with all the changes that are happening now. And my hope is that every child experiences and grows up with a fair degree of deep conversations. Some of that is missing with the social media, with lack of physical activity and lack of actual personal social connection. And our schools are essentially question answer. They are not conversation between teachers and children. So, how do you develop and grow and flourish? Certain things are out of the way now, like getting information is out of the way. And you are going to find yourself increasingly that you have a lot of time because AI is doing things for you. So, how do you have a conversation with yourself? How do you decide what to do, and how do you handle your time, and how do you connect with others? I think the future lies in those conversations, and I hope children have those in a big way.
That's a beautiful thought. Thank you so much for sharing your stories, insight, and wisdom with us today. And thank you to our audience for tuning in. Stay connected. Keep the dialogue going. See you in the next episode of Up Close and Personal Season 2.